to Ariel's Twilight Years, How to Be a Really, Really, Really Old Model. I'm with Tom today.
Hello. Good morning.
Tom is visiting because it's almost your birthday.
It is.
And it's also almost my publication day.
It is.
Because by the time you see this video, Playing to Lose will have been out in the world for like 6 days. And this is very exciting. This is my, for those of you who have not watched a video of mine before, this is my memoir of growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and ending up as a BDSM model. And that is what we're going to talk about today.
No,
because I got my author copies a month before publication date, and I sent one to you.
You did, very kindly, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I sent it to you because you had been such a very kind supporter of my trying to get my book published.
Right.
It's been a very slow and long journey.
Slow but sure.
Yes.
Yes.
So you were actually the first person I sent the book to once I got the actual book.
Thank you.
And you were the first person to actually read it all the way through, because I think you read really fast.
I did.
Which
Yes.
was very reassuring.
I don't typically read very quick.
I was expecting you to take quite a lot of time.
So was I. I was expecting I would take maybe a couple of weeks, perhaps, but I picked it up. It arrived on a Friday morning. I started reading it over my lunch for about 45 or so minutes, and then as soon as I finished work, I carried on until like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and then next morning I just carried on. So I finished it in 24
I feel
hours.
like this is what all authors want all their readers to be
Yes,
like.
yes.
Like that's what you want to
Yeah.
hear. The idea that someone's kind of read a couple of pages and like left it for a week is a very distressing.
Yes, I have done that with some books in the past, but
Me too.
perhaps I was a bit more invested in this book than others.
Yes. So obviously you knew a lot of the story, actually.
Yeah.
How many surprises were there for you?
There were perhaps surprises in each chapter. Perhaps in the first part of the book where you talked about your adolescence and growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, I knew most of that. There were some details of which I wasn't aware of before, but all in all, throughout the book there were things I was unaware of.
I'm glad. Did it make you want to write a memoir?
No,
Okay.
but that's because I'm not a BDSM model.
That is true. So, the reason we're making this particular video is that I have put immense pressure on Tom, which is something I love to do to my friends, to interview me about the book.
Yes.
Because I thought the nicest way of celebrating this book coming out is by having a chat with a friend about the book, and to have you ask me some questions at least. Because I think the interviews I've done about the book so far have been with people who don't know me.
Okay.
And so, although there's been nothing wrong with their questions, a lot of the questions I've been asked feel like very basic.
But sort of surface level.
Yeah,
Right.
because of course, like what else can you do if you don't really know someone? So let's get started. What's your first question,
So
dear
let me
Tom?
consult my phone
Yes.
ever so quickly. So the first question I have, which I think was the first note I wrote down as I was going through reading your book.
That's what I think all authors want everyone to do as well.
They did get to a point,
Why don't they all
maybe
write
halfway
notes?
through the book, where I was just so invested in reading the book that I just forgot. In chapter 1, you wrote something about saying that you forever disliked the feeling of being loved more than you love in return.
Yes.
And I wanted to know whether you could perhaps elaborate on
Yeah.
why this is and if that comes from anywhere in particular.
So my theory that I briefly address in the book is that if you're submissive, maybe this is quite a normal state of mind to be in. Because I think one of the kind of dynamics of BDSM is that as the sub, you're meant to be highly invested in the dom.
Okay.
But the dom doesn't necessarily have to be massively highly invested in you. I mean, in reality, obviously, I would want to be playing with someone who liked me and cared about me. But in the scene, they might be someone who was quite contemptuous of me or disinterested.
Okay.
And I think that desire for that dynamic sometimes sort of bleeds into my actual interpersonal relationships.
Right.
Because the idea of a potential dominant chasing me, going, oh please, please let me dominate you, you're so sexy, oh you're so wonderful, I don't think I can live if I can't dominate you. I mean, immediately that's not very dominant.
No.
That's a bit submissive, and it turns me off. So from a sexual point of view, I think it's true. I also am aware of the kind of notion of the thrill of the chase that I don't think is just a submissive thing, that a lot of people sort of enjoy the trying to make someone like them, trying to interest someone who isn't necessarily interested. There is a kind of an entertainment value in that. If you fancy someone and they're giving you mixed signals, you know, a lot of people find that quite exciting.
Right.
I mean, it's also very frightening because you don't know what you should do.
Yes.
But I'm certainly aware, if I look back at the kind of crushes I had as a child and a teenager, it was quite often crushes on people who probably weren't going to be interested in me, like, you know, like my teacher. And I think there is probably universal desire that a lot of people have for, well, let's see if I can get that person to like me because they seem a bit unattainable, and that makes it hot. And then the third aspect of it is my theory that as a younger sibling, you are just used to your older siblings not wanting you around anywhere near as much as you want them around.
Yes.
And obviously you are an older sibling. Two of your siblings are so much younger. I always think of you as a sort of...
Two duos, I suppose.
Like an older sibling type.
Yes.
Yes. So did you want your older sister around more than she wanted you?
No, interesting.
Oh. Did she want you around?
I would have to ask her that question.
Please do. Maybe you
And
just
I don't
ignore
know
each other.
whether our younger siblings feel that way about us or not.
Please ask. I'm very interested in this. I was desperate for attention from my sister.
I wonder whether it's perhaps... Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I wonder whether it's perhaps because obviously the age gap between you and him is 4 years.
Yes.
So it's somewhat of a...
Yes.
At that age, it's quite big, obviously.
Yes.
13 and 34 is quite similar, but 10 and 14 is quite different. My sister is only 18 months older than I am.
Yeah, so I guess the kind of power dynamic is somewhat shrunken in that situation.
Whereas my brother's about 6 years.
Yes.
And my elder sister is about 10 years older than my younger sister.
Imi and I played very well together. When she was 8 and I was 4, there were lots of things we wanted to do together. But then, when she was 14 and I was 10, she stopped wanting me. And it just made me want her more. And so I think I've got that going on. As a result of becoming very comfortable with being around someone who probably wanted me less than I wanted them, I think it's probably something that I maybe look to replicate to a certain extent, which is why in the book I discuss the ways in which actually my relationship with my husband is eerily similar to my relationship with my sister, although obviously not in a sexual way.
No.
But just that, so I really like being around people who are really quiet and quite disinterested in me, who just want to read their book. So those are my theories related to that
they do
question.
say opposites attract, don't they?
Yeah.
So you're quite, I guess, confident and vocal, whereas not to say that Imi or Hal are not confident, but they're not
They're certainly not
vocal as you are.
Yeah. And so it's not to say that I don't have friendships where maybe I am the one who's less available, because actually I'm not very available to you because I'm travelling a lot. So sometimes you message me and I can't get back to you for a couple of days. It doesn't impair the friendship, at least from my point of view. I think it's great. So it's not like I need everyone to be disinterested in me. I mean, that would be awful if everyone was. But it is interesting to me that I do seem to have sought out relationships where the people I'm trying to be friends with are not massively available to me.
Has that changed over time at all as you've gotten older? In say in your 20s, did you by and large seek or have friends that were
I think
disinterested?
Hideously remained very
consistent. Right.
That certainly the people I fancy tend to be people who...
Like more distant.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, obviously they still have to like me.
Yes.
But some level of I'm not the main thing going on in their life.
Yeah.
I find sexually attractive. How disturbing. So I'd love it if submissives who are watching this, please let me know in the comments if you understand what I'm talking about, if you feel similar, and similarly dominants, if you kind of recognise what I'm talking about, and if you like submissives who are terribly available to you, who reply to you immediately, let me know. Because a lot of my a book is kind of a monologue, but what I've written in the hope of people reading it and replying to me and saying, yes, I am a cruel older sibling, or yes, I'm a very needy younger sibling. Yes. So I kind of want it to be the beginning of a conversation where people tell me how similar their experience is to mine.
Yes.
So, yes. Thank you. I like that question very much. Do you have another question?
I do. Second question that you chose. you told me that you felt quite insecure about your book and having people read it. And as far as I could tell, having read it, that there's nothing that you should feel insecure about.
Thank you.
Because I think it's a beautifully written book and a triumphant book. And it struck a chord in me trying to understand what you feel or felt insecure about with regards to your book, given looking from the outside in, when it comes to your personality and the work that you do, you know, modelling naked and such. Looking from the outside in, it doesn't appear as though you're insecure about quite a lot of things. But
no, I can see why people would think that. And I've always felt, for the whole of my career, that actually getting naked on camera doesn't make me feel particularly vulnerable. It just doesn't, for whatever strange reason. I know it does for some people, it just doesn't for me. And I think it's because it doesn't reveal anything about who I am at all.
Okay.
Like, my body doesn't tell you anything about what's in my head.
No.
Whereas when I first started writing, even the smallest bits of writing, like descriptions for Restrained Elegance's picture sets.
Right.
As soon as I was writing down how I felt about shooting something, it felt very vulnerable, like very exposing in a way that getting naked on camera just didn't. And so my experience of writing this book was, writing was fine, but then realising, okay, all the people I've mentioned, I have to send these chapters to them to ask them if it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
also telling them like how you felt at the time.
Yeah, that was really hard.
Okay.
Like, really frightening in the way that I have never felt frightened of modelling, ever.
So it occurs to me to wonder whether sharing your life and your feelings, like you do, quite openly on social media and other platforms and like articles and such, as well as OnlyFans, and then shooting more sexual content that's to your personal sexual tastes on many bits and for your customers, has perhaps given you more confidence in and of yourself when it comes to writing, when it came to writing your book?
I actually think it's the other way round. So I think the harder content I've been shooting is as a result of having written the book and having got through the kind of pain barrier of sharing personal stuff. So I think the sort of modelling I'm doing now is more explicit and more based on my fantasies because of the book interlude. Interestingly, because I did feel very vulnerable writing it. The day that the ebook suddenly went out, and I hadn't been prepared, I hadn't known the ebook was going to arrive before anything else, and people started messaging me and saying, oh, I'm on chapter 3, I'm on chapter 4. That was really frightening. And I think part of it is that I'm sharing my actual feelings.
Yes.
But part of it is just that the process of writing a book, and getting it published is so slow that you end up so intimately acquainted with your own writing that you can't see it clearly anymore. Yeah. And so I think the potential readers, they divide in my mind into kind of safe people who I think will be nice about it and will accept it, and dangerous people who might leave 1-star reviews on Amazon. And I'm feeling pretty okay about the safe people reading it now, and still very scared about the dangerous people reading it.
Do you feel at all that way about articles you've written? Because they've typically got a shorter turnaround.
Yes.
Haven't they?
I think probably I can see them a bit more clearly. You're right, because you're less intimately acquainted.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that I was sharing my turnover, I was sharing quite personal information that I try to be very honest and open about this stuff on social media, so that's good practice. But yeah, it still feels pretty vulnerable. I just think that it's worth pushing through that feeling, because in the end, I think you become invulnerable when you've shared enough.
Yes.
That's my theory.
Yes.
When everyone knows everything, what's left to be vulnerable about? That's my aim.
That's a fair point.
It's quite a dramatic choice.
True. I don't think most people would probably be so inclined to share every detail, but you're not every person.
I'm hoping I will encourage other people to do it.
Yes. Yeah, I suspect you probably will.
That's my hope.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I was curious, because I think you might have already started based on some PSA, is that if you were to write another book, be it a sequel, memoir, or a book about something else entirely, having written your first book and gone through the process of finding a publisher and getting it published and all this sort of stuff, would you do anything differently, and if so, what?
Yes, I would do things differently. The first thing I would do differently is something I'm already doing differently, which is that I've made lots of notes for potential stuff I might write, but I'm waiting to see how this book fairs and what people say to me about what they'd like me to write
Oh.
before I start writing.
Okay.
Not to say that I wouldn't have written my memoir, but I think I would have had a lot more confidence if I'd already got a potential publisher saying, we think it would be really great if you
I see.
focused on this. So having the input of a publisher earlier would have been really nice, because now I've got some writer friends. A lot of them get the book deal for a book they've not written yet. And I mean, which sounds a bit pressurising, but also just the safety of that I'm writing a book that is definitely
It's in demand.
going to sell. So
Yes.
that's really appealing.
Yeah.
Also, what I have learned in the process of getting this book to market is that you have to be shameless and relentless. And at the beginning of the process, I didn't know that. So when I look at my first letters that I wrote to agents, they were nowhere near pushy enough at all. And I started with the agents I wanted the most. I was wrong, as it happens, because to begin with, I thought I needed an American agent. I don't know why now. So I wrote to a lot of really big American agents, and they all just said no, because my submission letter presumably was so off the mark, they weren't interested in the book. Now I'd be much more likely to invite the potential publisher out for lunch rather than just writing. I mean, they might say no, but what I have learned is that face-to-face is the absolute best way of me for getting my point across. And so now I am much better at not letting people say no.
Hence why I'm here.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Are you?
Yes.
So yeah, I want to make a video soon for advice for people who are trying to get published for the first time, because I've learned so much stuff that I wish I could go back and tell 41-year-old me a few years ago, because I could have saved myself so much time and so much rejection.
Did you talk to Imi about it at all at the time?
Yes, so Imi is already published, that's my older sister, but unfortunately, because she's in fiction and she's in young adult and her book was published first in America, actually her experience was significantly different, so it wasn't particularly helpful. So my first submission letter to agents was actually written by Imi, and that wasn't any good for the people I was approaching. So then I wrote one which was also not good for them, and then the letter that I eventually ended up with, which did get me an agency contract, was, I mean, it's vile. It's so tabloid and it's so pushy. And it's so like, oh, I'm a infamous BDSM model. It felt so embarrassing to write it, but that's actually what seems to work.
Does it sort of have to be like a CV/cover letter? It's because you're selling yourself to them. This is why you should work with me because of X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Right.
And I started off quite dignified, and I ended up not dignified at all.
I mean, naturally, I think most people, certainly you and I, would be modest and dignified and polite.
To begin with, absolutely.
Yeah, because that's what feels right, that's what feels natural. But
yes.
I guess we learn somewhat quickly in the publishing world that it's not always the right course of action to be modest.
And I've also learned that who you know is massively important.
Yeah.
So just to make a few connections with people in publishing, even if they're not directly the publisher who's going to take you on or the agent who's going to take you on. I mean, it's awful that it should matter, but knowing a reviewer or like a literary critic or knowing another author whose book is doing well, all of that, it should not matter. It does matter. And so I would certainly exploit the fact that I have friends in publishing now, which is awful. But I would, because I understand now that's how it works.
Yes.
And if I want to help change it from the inside, I need to be in the inside.
That's a fair point.
Yes.
They do say in some walks of life it's not what you know, but rather who you know.
And it does seem like in publishing that it seems like it's the case. Yes.
This last question that you chose is, what do you hope your book will achieve? Not necessarily insofar as financial success, but in the grand scheme of things, what do you hope it will achieve?
I have, between you and I've written off the possibility of financial success altogether, because I've now spent so many hours on it. It would have to sell so many thousands of copies to make me any kind of normal hourly rate. It's going to be below minimum
wage. That's not why you wrote it in the first place.
Absolutely not. No. So what I really hope, at the heart of everything, I hope it makes kinky people feel better about being kinky, because as you know from reading the book, the most powerful thing that happened to me was discovering kinky people who had created art that told me I wasn't alone, that told me it was okay. So I hope my book will become part of that art that makes people like me who are new feel okay. And the other thing I really hope for is that my book will succeed enough to make it easier for future sex workers of any type to get their book published.
Yes.
Because the first thing that agents and publishers ask you for as an author is, oh, well, what are the books that are a bit like yours that have done well? And I found there weren't any. The closest approximation I could think of was published over 20 years ago.
Okay.
And that was a bad thing because publishers it seemed quite risk averse, and so they want to publish something that's a bit like something that they know has done okay. So I like the idea that in 5 years' time there might be another BDSM model or someone similar who's written a book, and when they apply they can say it's like Playing to Lose, and that Playing to Lose will have been a successful enough book that will help them get published. The idea of us all climbing on the success of the people who came before us is a really appealing idea.
You're leading the way for other people to follow. Eventually, hopefully.
I mean, I feel like I'm not leading the way. Someone else before me helped me.
Sure.
Like, it feels like
you're continuing that path.
Yeah, exactly.
They say be the change that you want to see, and it appears to me that's exactly what you're doing.
That's what I hope. So I'm hoping that this book being published will get me emails from people who are trying to get published, and I'll be able to help them. Yeah,
and likewise, as you talked about in your YouTube video for August, in the collaboration with the other kinky author, I think I left a comment to the similar effect that it's the fact there's two sort of sex work kink related books coming out at a similar time is hopefully indicative of society becoming more amenable and positive towards kink. Yeah, and a final thing I'd like is for people to read the book and think the Jehovah's Witnesses are a fucking disgusting religion. Yes. Because if it stops one person becoming a Jehovah's Witness, that would be awesome. 100%. Like, I would be very happy with that. Thank you, dear Tom. Thank you. We will stop there because I feel like this video is now, its natural length is going to be like 45 minutes, so I'm going to have to cut loads out. Thank you, dear Tom, for doing this. Thank you for having me. Because I know that you do not whore yourself out on camera 24/7, so this is not the most natural thing to do. Thank you very much for watching. Please do purchase my book. You don't have to pre-order, you can just literally buy it right now. You can be reading it tomorrow. Or in bookshops. Yes, and if you do read it, I would very, very much love reviews on Amazon. Reviews on Amazon turn out to be like massively important to your visibility as an author. So 4-star and above. I would like 5-star, please, thank you. 5-star reviews on Amazon are of such value to me. If you leave me a review, I will read it out on video and put it on Twitter. I will use your name or not, whichever you prefer, and that I hope will be reward enough for you to consider leaving me a nice review, because it's really important. I cannot overstate. I've just learned from my publisher how important that is. Right. Like, getting 50 reviews changes everything. So please, please, please don't like and subscribe. You don't have to. You just please leave me a review. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I'll be back next month with more. Thank you. Have a lovely month. Goodbye now. Bye. Goodbye now. Bye-bye now. Goodbye. Ooh. Ooh. This is subliminal messaging. It's very subtle.